if you can see my screen.
Yeah, we can see it. Go ahead, please.
Okay, perfect. I'll start. So hello, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, because it's a little bit later for you. My name is Célia Couve, and I'm going to present to you a 10-year systematic review. So I'm an undergrad student studying cognitive neurosciences in Canada, in Montreal. And I realized this study when I joined the Intercog laboratory last year in 2022 under the supervision of Dr. Moreno. So we did this study as part of a bigger research project where we wanted to identify gerontechnology designed to help older adults diagnosed with MCI and their family caregivers. So here's a little outline of how the presentation is going to go. So first, I will introduce our subject and our objective. Then I will talk about our methods and then give you our results and our recommendation. So for a little bit of context, the provisions are that the world's population aged 60 years and more will increase from 1 billion in 2020 to 1.4 billion in 2030, and 1 out of 6 persons will be over 60 by then. Also, by 2050, this world population aged over 60 will double and attain 2.1 billion. And the number of persons aged 80 years and older is expected to triple in the span of 30 years, so between 2020 and 2050, and reach 426 million. So I'm going to talk about a lot about MCI, or mild cognitive impairment, during this presentation. So here's a short definition as a reminder. So it's an early stage of memory loss or the loss of another cognitive ability in individuals who can maintain the ability to perform daily activities on their own, most of them at least. And that's where it differs from dementia, because as we know, dementia does interfere with daily life and the person's independence. Here are a few key numbers on MCI that I think are important to present. So about 12% to 18% of people aged 60 years and plus are living with MCI. 10 to 15% of these individuals develop dementia each year, and about a third of people living with MCI due to Alzheimer's disease develop dementia within 5 years. So as we saw, the number of older adults is rapidly growing in the world and also in Canada, because that's where we did our study, which causes an increase in the prevalence of neurocognitive disorders, because as we saw, the two are linked together. That's why it's necessary to find new ways to support these older adults with MCI to maintain their independence as much as possible and prevent early institutionalization. And it's also important to include their family caregivers in the process and try to reduce their burden, because as we know, it's such an immense one and not always taken into account, unfortunately. And that's where gerontechnology comes into play. So gerontechnology can be defined as an interdisciplinary field that links existing technology and developing one according to the need of older adults. It supports successful aging, and it's a response to the combination of our aging society, as we saw, and the rapidly emerging technology, which is what makes it such a promising way to facilitate the care of older people. Here I put out some pictures of examples of what gerontechnology can be. So it can be something as simple as an app on your phone that can help the person deal with their life better, like call people more easy, like have everything in one app. It can be like a watch that can trace their heartbeats or their step, or have a GPS inside to locate them, or anything, like really can be a lot of things. So our objective for this review was to identify those latest technologies for home support tested with elders with MCI and their family caregivers from 2012 to 2022. So to do so, we conducted a systematic literature research in 5 different databases that I identified at the bottom of the slide, and it was validated by 2 independent librarians. We used the Covenant software to screen the titles and abstract of the articles, and we included them if they met our inclusion criteria, which are on the screen. So it was literature addressing the use of technology-assisted home support in community-dwelling older adults diagnosed with MCI and their family caregivers. It had to be both of those populations. It had to be a research article or a case study. The articles could be in English, French, Spanish, or Chinese, which is 4 languages, which was a really good thing to have. And it could be a qualitative, quantitative, or mixed method design. So before I present to you our results, here's a graph where we can see the numbers of studies that matched our keywords published in the last decade. As we can see, there is a growing trend that can be observed in the number of articles that were published each year, with a peak in 2021, which can be surprising because we can see like a fall in 2022, but that's only because we did our review kind of early in the year, around March, April. So we didn't have all the review from the year. So the number might not be accurate for 2022 as we did it at the beginning of the year. So despite that fact, as we saw all the studies published per year, the screening process, once it was done, no study matched our inclusion criteria. So as you can see, we had 0 studies included in the end, even though we started with 546 references. Once we removed those duplicates, we had 320. We read the titles and abstract of those 320s, and we were left with 27 full text studies that we assessed for eligibility, but then none of them actually matched our criteria. So here are the reasons of why we excluded every one of those 27 studies. So we can see that the most common one is that the technology was tested with MCI, but also with another category of older adults. So older adults with dementia or with just normal aging, and the results were not separated. And because of that, it did not show the specific utility of the technology for elders with MCI, which was our population goal. And the other main reason, as we can see with 7 studies published, was that the technology was not tested in both older adults with MCI and their family caregivers. It was only one or the other and not the two together. And since that was such a crucial part of our problematic, we had to exclude those studies too. So since no article matched our research criteria, our review resulted in what's called an empty review, which is when no eligible studies are retrieved or located by review authors. It's actually a more prevalent phenomenon than we could think, because it's estimated that 1 in 10 Cochrane reviews were empty as of 2010. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, because as we can see, empty review can tell us 3 main things. First of all, who is undertaking the review, and so who is interested in this topic. It can highlight major research gaps, which is always a good thing, and it can indicate the state of research evidence at a particular point in time. So after getting those results, we went back to our criteria to make sure that we had been inclusive enough and not too restrictive. So I put them back here for you so you can see them. We discussed them with the team, and we came to the conclusion that they were inclusive enough and that they had just uncovered a gap in literature and that no articles had been done there. So to conclude, in the last 10 years, no studies, as we saw, have investigated the use of technology for home support in both older adults with MCI and their family caregivers. Most of the literature, as we saw, includes mixed samples, and the results are not separated, or the technology is not tested with the 2 populations at the same time. And since people with MCI are still able to live relatively independently, it is necessary to use this window of time before it progresses into dementia to try to implement this new way, this technology, to try to delay it. So following these results, we have a few recommendations to make. The first one is that we need to conduct research including those 2 populations, elders with MCI and their family caregivers, not just one or the other, and so that we can explore the utility and efficacy of gerontechnology and if they could help those 2 populations, because we don't really know as of today. And also, we encourage researchers in this area to analyze separately their data from individuals with MCI and people with dementia if they decide to test the technology with those 2 populations, because this way it would allow us to see if there are any differences between the 2 groups. Before I finish my presentation, here is a special issue that will be published by the magazine Frontier in Psychology. There's a little QR code if you want to scan it, have more information. The abstract submission deadline is April 1st, and the manuscript submission deadline is September 1st, and you have all the details on the QR code. Thank you so much for your attention, and thank you to all the team who helped for this project. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate, and that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Celia, very much for your very distant connection. Your work was very interesting. Do you have any questions from the audience, please? Celia, do you hear the question?
Sorry, no, I couldn't hear the question. Can you repeat, please?
Can you go back a couple of slides to see the special issue information?
Yes, sure. Can you see it?
Yeah, sure. Somebody wants to copy something.
Oh, no problem.
Is it your teams? Your
yeah, it's I'm under the supervision of Alexander Moreno, and he's one of the topic editors for this issue.
All right, I think that the pictures have been taken, so thank you very much.
Okay, perfect.
Any other questions from the audience? No? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you so much for your attention.